Turn the volume down, Joe, it helps.
Well, I'm not sure which volume to turn down.
I don't know which one it is. I know the one on the computer, you turn it down, it comes in a little clearer.
Sometimes, and sometimes you can't hear it.
Sometimes. It did one time before.
Donna, try talking again.
I can, but barely.
Try talking again, Donna. She's talking now, she's muted. I'm not sure what's going on.
Tell her to start counting.
It's, it is, distortion. I don't know why. But anyway, she's there. She had, to go into the hospital at 2. And she, spent some time there, papers, and got some blood work done. They're gonna do her choreocentesis in the morning. Take that fluid off her lungs, just having that again. She's been having a fever here lately because they think that the fluid is causing infection. So that's basically her story. They're gonna evaluate whether they can actually do surgery on her to fix her hernia while she's there. That's caused a lot of trouble when the fluid gets bad and when it's got a lot of pain too. If that happens, it'll probably be later. We'll schedule it for, and we need to tell her that. But, we'll deal with that when it comes. Anything else going on? You got a new mower?
Got a new mower, and I worked it pretty hard.
Yeah. You said,
It worked me pretty hard.
did you have to fix it yet, or is it broken? Or?
No.
Well, good for you.
Well, it was broke this morning, I couldn't figure out how to start it.
Isn't that a key?
Yeah, it's got 2 of them.
I have never driven one of those things before. I'd like to. I just never figured we bought this last one, I never figured it was worth the extra money with what little ground we have.
It's
Actually, it was cheaper than the other ones.
I was thinking that was eventually the way it would go.
The rest of them aren't, but that one, well, I think they're taking it off the market.
And I've noticed that the electric motors used to be way more expensive, but now they're getting lower than the gas ones too.
They're trying to get people to buy them because the batteries are dead.
Yeah, they don't last for an hour and a half. That's about the best you get. But, if you don't want to mow more than an hour and a half, it's kind of cool.
All depends how far away from the house you are when it dies.
But I'm not talking about the ride ones. I don't think they make a electric one that's very good with the ride. Which ones? Let's see, anything else? Can't think of anything. Charles is here. Joe, would you lead us for a prayer before we start?
Our Lord God and Father of all, come before thee in prayer, we first praise thee, Father. We praise the Holy Spirit, we praise the Holy Word, which is God. We ask in our prayer, Lord, put down upon us, touch the hearts of each and every one of us here. Let us be filled with thy word. Let us have great wisdom and knowledge and faith, Lord God. Be with our speaker this morning, this evening. Let him teach thy word in a manner well pleasing unto thee, most understanding us. Let us all grab great knowledge from thee, Lord. We ask you, Lord God, for thy guidance and direction in all things and say and do. And thy continual blessing upon us always. This through Christ's holy name we do praise thee in us all things.
All right, Matthew 10, paragraph that begins with verse 32. He's already told you how much more valuable you are than sparrows, and he knows when they fall to the ground, and the hairs of your head are all counted. So the whole idea of that is God cares for you. And then in verse 32, Jesus says that I will confess you before God if you confess me here on earth. I think much has been made about that shouldn't have been. I think the meaning is very plain. If you stand up for Christ all your life, he will stand up for you at judgment. Then in verse 34 through 36, we talked about this, but this is a prophecy of the future. It's going to happen on a small scale immediately after he says it, but it's going to happen on a much larger scale a few years after Jesus leaves the earth. Now, he does say, and he quotes, by the way, "For I came to turn a man against his father, and a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law, and a person's enemies will be the members of his household." This actually did happen. It happened during Jesus' day. It happened in the early church till about, well, the obvious persecution lasted until about, in the 300s, AD 300s.
I think it still goes on today too, Joe.
Well, it was in the sermon Sunday night. Remember, it starts off with John the Baptist, in my opinion. Persecution of Christians, although you might say that, I know that's the old trivia question, that James was the first Christian martyr. But I'm kind of thinking John the Baptist was. He was the first one that died to bring in Jesus Christ. But that's neither here nor there. It started off with John the Baptist. It went on to Nero. And then throughout the centuries, it was kind of, well, less obvious than it is now and less obvious than it is then. During a lot of the times, Christians were persecuted by people who claimed to be other Christians. The most famous guy who did this he was a brutal individual, but he was also a churchman. His name was Vlad the Impaler of Wallachia, later becomes Romania. He persecuted, he's a vicious guy. Somebody was fixing to invade Wallachia, and he went to a village on the border of his own people and slaughtered them and killed them all. And he wanted them to see, look what I'll do to my own people, what do you think I'm going to do to you? And it worked. They left. But he also persecuted people who didn't believe what he thought they ought to believe in Christianity. And he impaled them as well. So it's not as obvious as it is now. I don't think that we have a lot of experience with overt persecution here in this country, in our society. For the most part, in most places, we are free to worship as we will. There have been very few exceptions throughout our history, mainly because it's the First Amendment. The Congress will, of the Bill of Rights, Congress will not pass no law establishing a religion or, I think it's abridging or impinging, one of the two, the free exercise thereof. So people and that has been interpreted very closely by every Supreme Court. They're very careful that people have a right to worship. However, the picture I showed you was I'm not sure what kind of a denomination it was, but it was a church professing Christianity that was burnt. And there are various other religious groups today that believe in the silencing by assassination, murder, whatever, of Christians. There are some people in Nigeria and people, since we have supported Tom and Abasiyama, there have been several who have died in those places. In Tom's report, we heard him mention the Foron mission churches, the two of them that are there. They're both very small churches, but they can't really worship together because that would require too much travel. And it's travel over dangerous ways because there are people there bent on violence. I can't imagine living anyway the way that our brethren in Nigeria live, and just about everybody lives. I had an experience. Now I've got two scared, very big dogs. Joe and Kim loaned me up. Electric fence excited, and I told you I put it up. Well, it's finally up, and they don't want to go outside now.
One of them touched it, huh?
Well, they have both touched it. Max screams, and Champ gets mad and growls, but then he trembles. at it, but they're outside now getting used to where they can go and stuff. I've been trying to train them very slowly at it, but now we're just gonna get thrown at the deep end. But people in Nigeria, Christians especially, but just about everybody in Nigeria, they build their house, but then they build a huge wall around it, and they put broken glass on top, or broken metal, sharp metal, or razor wire, or barbed wire, or whatever they can. And then Tom has several German shepherds that have been trained to attack, that patrol his yard at night, because it's that dangerous. I was talking to, and I can't remember his name offhand, but he now lives, oddly enough, he had a master's degree years ago when the School of Biblical Studies was started. And he and I have conversed back and forth. He lives in Searcy, Arkansas now, but he used to live in Nigeria. And he showed me pictures of his house in Nigeria, and his house is the same way. It's fairly nice inside, but you have to go through several layers of security to get to it. I mean, I can't imagine living that way.
That's just the way of life, what they're used to.
Oddly enough, Tom's dad doesn't. In South Nigeria, it's mostly Christian, but in northern Nigeria, where Tom lives, it's mostly Muslim, and in some cases, Muslim extremists.
Muslim extremists, not only good Christians, the devil.
Well, yeah. Well, they also, and here's something that I don't know the answer to, just an observation. Muslim extremists seem to spend more time killing other Muslims than they do killing anyone else. Even the 9/11 thing, which is horrible, and they should never have gotten away with that, and probably could have been prevented, but still, the 9/11 thing doesn't hold a candle to how many, Tom says that how many Muslims they killed. And Tom says that a lot of these Muslim schools, and now even Christian schools, little girls are being kidnapped. I saw that the other day. It happened again. Little girls are being kidnapped to be raised as Muslims to become wives for Muslim fighters, Islamic extremists. So it is happening in this world today. We experience it because we support those who are going through it. But now, I've seen this preached in a very odd way. The one who loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me, and the one who loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. This has nothing to do with not loving your physical family. This has to do with not following your physical family into error.
Has to do with, if you put your family first before Jesus, he tells you do this, and your family says, don't do this, do this. And you go with what your family says, you don't love Jesus.
And I think I told you this, my mother's best friend in high school, she married mother's brother. And so she is my aunt now. And she has called and talked to me several times because her mother was sick. But they got into a horrible, horrible fight. The worst I've ever seen at at mother's brother's house. They were visiting, came over to see mom and dad and me. I missed it. I was outside playing with the horse and my cousins, and I was a city kid, and I loved going out in the country and dealing with the pigs and the cows and the sheep and the goats and the horses. And so I was outside. I think I got stepped on by the horse, and they were so mad at me, nobody cared. I did hurt for days, but they got some sort of horrible view about baptism, some sort of horrible row about baptism, and they were trying to, and doing the wrong thing. They were trying to argue to settle it, and then they were worse. But because people want to argue, they aren't going to see either. But mother didn't know that, and she was just shaking as soon as it was over. Oddly enough, several years later, when they were in between preachers, and they asked me to spend Sunday morning and Sunday night there to speak. My aunt and uncle, the same aunt and uncle, came and actually did not go to their denominational church and came to hear me preach. So things did change. But the thing is, I think all of us have gone through this, that a family member objects to what we're doing religiously.
I've had my family starting to plan an event, and then they say, oh yeah, Ken's got church.
Yeah.
My
That's,
family's the same way.
yeah,
That's the form of covert persecution. I mean, it's not overt, it's not, obvious, but it's.
well, I took it personal. I said,
Well, yeah, it hurts just as bad. Now, I don't know. It hurts differently.
well,
It's kind of overt, kind of hiding it, but in a way, putting it in your face too.
well, I was told I was a fanatic.
I tell them, just come join us in church.
Mhm.
We can all eat at the same time.
Well, I can remember telling people here, if you have company that don't want to come to church, stay home with your company. Leave them home and come to church, or, trust them, lock the door and come to wait in their car to get home, well, they came all this way. Well, I mean, they drove for a while, they've been around. But there are family members who are against what we do religiously. You know, uh, we've always been this. Our family has been this.
You were
Why can't you
raised
be
a certain
this?
way.
You-
You were raised Baptist.
Yeah,
I don't think, I still read the same Bible.
or you were raised better than this. Is what
I've
they're
read
kind
it
of,
before, but not.
is what they're kind of insinuating, Oddly enough, this is just not it's not an isolated thing. I think it comes to just about all of us. We have a family member that is maybe aggressive, maybe not, but certainly is confused by what we do religiously and don't understand why we don't do something else.
Or even say, you think you're better than me because you go to church.
Yeah.
A family member will tell you that.
But that usually comes from arguing, right?
No, it's just got vulnerable minds, they just don't like to argue, they just get ugly from the start. They skip the,
Like the degenerated,
yeah,
like
they
the
just start from the beginning.
start evil. There are some kind of in-your-face families. And I think we probably have some in-your-face people in all of our families,
You can't keep your thing.
I remember talking to my grandmother a few times, and she said, everybody's right. I said, Grandma, everybody can't be right. If you have two different answers, one of them's gotta be right, the other's gotta be right, they both gotta be wrong. That's the only, that's just what I believe. That's the way she believed until, well, honestly, Grandma kind of passed away from the same thing Mother did, from Alzheimer's. And so I don't know what she believed when she died. She was, she was that way, but I tell you what, when Dad was growing up, his dad didn't have anything to do with church, but Grandma loaded up all those kids and take them down and walk to that little local church. Did they ever tear that down? Early was trying to get us to sign a petition as landholders in Missouri to keep them tear that little church down. Which the time to restore that little church was over with. She was always taking them to church, and as long as she lived at home, she and my Uncle Frank, they would go to church every Sunday, they would be there. No matter how bad off Vic was, and my Uncle Frank could barely walk. He had scoliosis, wasn't it? And he was mentally handicapped as well. And they went to church. I mean, that's where they went.
And that's interesting, Joe. There are all these people in great health, they can't make the church because your leg hurts, their arm hurts, their back hurts, or some reason. But you get these people that really should be able to make it, and they make it.
And I'll go ahead and add the other one, because it's raining. I'm gonna put a church because it's raining. And actually, let's face it, this is the one thing it's harder on me than it is to y'all. If it's raining, it's harder for me to get here than it is for y'all to get here, because y'all just have to go from your cars, I have to walk all the way across.
We gotta walk a long ways to get that car.
Well, there's that, so. But, you know, my point is, and I can remember even back in Kentucky, we had snow. Well, there, I lived even closer to the church building than I do here because I lived in it. They had built an apartment on the back of the church building, and that's where I lived. So I had no problem getting to church in the snow. But most of our members live along our little road that, southeast Kentucky, in the holler, you know, along the creek, which was where the road went. Everybody lived there, except for one of our elders who was in his 80s. He lived 2 mountains over, which is a big deal in Kentucky because the mountains are, if you've seen North Georgia mountains, you ain't seen these mountains, okay? And if you've seen poor Kentucky, we don't have as good roads as you have anywhere. They're horrible.
You go up and down a bunch of roads.
Yeah, I know. But you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, I do.
He'd drive himself, his little car, little blue car, all the way across both them mountains and come to church. And sometimes we might have 5 or 6 people from our holler, and 30 more didn't show up, and he showed up. I remember the other elder said, I don't understand where everybody is. You got a man drove over 2 mountains to get here, and all our people live next door, and they don't show up. And that's it. I mean, I don't know. I don't know when it became such a chore. But, you know, I didn't feel like he ought to be there anyway. I should say, I would have understood.
Right, he had more.
In his 80s, you know, and he was there. And he drove back home, and he drove back Sunday night in the dark in the ice and snow. You know, so, I mean, if he wasn't there, if he was not there, we'd start checking the hospital, you know, because something was going on. What I'm trying to say is this: everybody has a loyalty that wants to take away from the loyalty of Christ. We all have that. I mean, my own little story about this, back in the day, when I was coaching football, I went to the league meetings, and they said, well, we're going to start playing all our games on Wednesdays. I said, well, they don't ask us to play. So what it is, well, I church on Wednesdays. I said, if I can get there by 7, then that's okay. But I can't go up to Reedsville, play a game, get the kids home, wait till they get ready to get a ride, then they get there by 7. I ain't doing it. And then, the varsity coach said, we're practicing late on Wednesdays. So I'm not. And the kids that go to our church are not either. And this was in front of the team. They said, well, Coach Holloway, we need to talk about this. I said, we're talking about it now. I said, some things come before football.
Don't you think a lot of those things are kind of the norm since at least the 50s? But then you come along to 2020 and good church people stayed away from church.
Mm-hmm.
For
These reasons.
for reasons, period.
Yeah.
Some of them I knew used the excuse, you know, that we were supposed to get flatlined, which was never gonna do, and stayed away the whole year. Whole year. And then you have to think, what is church for? What is the meaning? And not to say different from the family, but the coming here together. It has a meaning. And I had several people get really, really angry at me because I had a different opinion and I must coincide with what they thought was best.
Mm-hmm.
And their reasoning was many.
Mm-hmm.
And they're sort of on the surface, they were good. I stayed away to protect other people. And I stayed away because they told us to, you know, and you should think that too. So these good Christians, some of them are still mad at me, but you stayed away from church to protect your life. That would go along with the Libya, you know, and places like that. That's protecting their life. If they go, they're gonna, good chance they're gonna get shot.
And yet they still go.
And yet they still go. And the same was true in Rome. You know, where do you draw the line that church has a different meaning maybe than we have today? I show up because I'm a good Christian. I show up, feel a seat. I think many people have lost a sense of what edification. You know, you don't get edification by yourself.
Commitment too.
And,
I show up to feel empty from this.
well, oftentimes I did too over the years, but, you know, it makes me sad because this little church right here still has a few people that don't come for fear, that don't come because it's tiresome, don't come because, you know, many reasons. And sometimes I think, because I wonder if my grandkids, really know what it means. A lot of people go to church, a lot of their friends go other churches. Many churches have the same ideas. You know, you go to learn and do and follow. But do they know what the church means? The edification, what, you know, why are we coming?
You go to worship.
Well, that, worship,
I think that's number one. I think everything else,
you sort of can worship alone.
you
Sure.
can and should. But that does not take the place of worshiping together as Christians.
And why do we do that?
Because it strengthens us. I mean, the number one
Well,
answer is
edification,
because
yes.
we're commanded. But because we're commanded, there's a lot of these other things that are sort of byproducts of that. They're strengthening, edification, which I guess means the same thing. There's the ability, and you know as well as I do, that it's easier to worship with other people than it is by yourself. Because, you know, it really is. I mean,
Yeah,
it'll last longer. You have people that are helping you do it. And folks, let's face it, anytime you're doing anything, if you've got help at work, it works better. The good help anyway.
it
So-
makes me sad that we don't build this church better. And I'm including myself in we.
Yeah.
You know, because that in itself is a mission.
And I've noticed too, that our response to the Great Commission, I've noticed too that if we work on worshiping God, that takes us a long way towards preaching the gospel, teaching, edification, like you said. I think all those things come as a byproduct. We need to come to worship God. My mother again, she had this answer. In fact, I turned it back on her when she first started getting Alzheimer's. For some reason, Mom was scared. And after a while, we just couldn't talk her into coming anymore. She was frightened of being here.
Yeah,
But at first,
and that's one of the
when that
things.
first started, I'm not judging her, I'm saying
Yeah.
that's what happened. But now, y'all know who knew her, you didn't keep her away. I mean, When I was little, not by the single digits, when we were living in Arkansas, we went to a really large church. I liked it, but I was like every kid, you know. It was a granddaughter that one of our preachers had. Said she liked the singing, community was okay to watch, but the commercial in the middle was just too long, you know. And probably that's true. 30-minute sermon for a kid is too long. Well, that's the way I felt. And I would tell Mom on Sunday morning, I don't want to go, I'm sick. Well, it was just like school. Mother wanted to know, you're sick how? Mother's also hypochondriac. She was scared to death I was sick, you know, I would get sick. But she had this thing she would say. I'd say, well, I've got a really bad headache. Well, I imagine Jesus probably had a headache when he was carrying that cross up that hill. I mean, I tried everything. I knew Jesus didn't have something, you know,
You need to know
but it didn't work. I mean, so because how could I say, oh, okay. Actually, I tried it on her when she started not wanting to come. She said, well, I don't feel good. I said, I don't imagine Jesus felt too good. In fact, I told Donna to tell her that. I said, tell her I said that. She said, I told her that. She said she knew it was you that said it. You know, because she remembered when I was growing up. So the thing is, God asks us to do it.
He commands us to do it.
Sorry about that. God asks us to do it. He commands us to do it. It's not that big of a deal to do it.
No, but when you do it and reward effort, it's a great, gigantic deal.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, there have been some times, I mean, in the past and here lately, I mean, a few times we've been up all night, or a lot of the night, you know, Donna more than me. But, and we've been dealing with stuff, and I can remember one night, I get home at 4 in the morning, on Saturday night, and at 4 in the morning, take care of something broken wheels. I was asleep when somebody woke me up, got me out of bed, and I had to go all over Savannah and Effingham County and Statesboro and come home. It was a chore to get up, and it went through my mind to call somebody and not come. But I said no.
One of the biggest things, is Bob was an ICU for that whole month. You still came to preach.
Yeah.
Anybody else, if their spouse was in there, they wouldn't run. And I'm not saying you, I know you did the right thing, but I don't know if anybody else would have done the same thing.
These are just a few of us. I'll tell you the rest of that story. That was something I considered. And Donna said, no, you're gonna go to church. And you're gonna preach. Well, the sermons y'all got were not reruns. Donna was in ICU, and I had my computer on my lap, and I did the sermons that week on my computer there, and uploaded them to Google Drive and downloaded them here. I was kind of glad I did, you know. And, you know, not to brag, but during the football days, I can remember we played a game in Porto, and they assured me I would get home. The assistant coaches said, please let us play it. We'll get home. We'll wait with the kids. You go on home, go to church. Well, we just barely made it. The game went into overtime. So I jumped in the car, drove back here. I came in and taught Wednesday Bible study wet. Because it was one of those horrible, horrible games where the referees wouldn't call it, and it was just a deluge that came. And then it got miserable because the storm went by and the sun came out. And so we're sitting there in humid heat. My shoes were full of water. Everything about me was wet. I walked in here wet and taught Bible class with my whistle still hanging out of my pocket. You know. Could I have been excused? I don't think anybody would have said anything. Yeah, I did have to miss one Sunday morning when we had to call an ambulance. But I think that was it. The point I'm trying to make is this. It's important. And when we say, well, you know, is it more important than other things people want us to do? Yeah. I can remember years ago in a teenage class, our youth minister was teaching it, and I didn't like him. I didn't like the things that he did, but somebody was saying in that class, well, what if somebody agrees to come to church with you? If you will agree to miss and go to church with them. And everybody said, well, I guess it's a judgment call. And I said, I finally couldn't stand it anymore. I said, it is a judgment call. And God has already made the judgment. He has told you to worship. He said, well, then they won't come. I said, yes, they will. When they see your dedication, they're going to see something that's important to you, and they're going to wonder why. How do you know that? I said, because they've already told you they would. They have already told you that they're willing to miss theirs to see what you're doing. And if you're not willing to miss it, they really want to see what you're doing. You know, something that will work in almost every case. Watch. It's not a trade-off. Jesus went to the cross. Jesus lived his life so that we could have these worship services, so that we can approach the throne of God. And how dare we ignore those opportunities? Our worst. Make excuses for not taking advantage of them. There is a thing that is used, and it's not a biblical phrase, but I still agree with it. There are times when if you heard the phrase providentially hindered from attending, and there are. I mean, I don't think there's as many of those occasions today as there was before, but providentially hindered, providence just simply means fate. And hindered means kept from the providence, yeah. This just means the unexpected and uncontrollable.
You're on your way to church, somebody sideswiped your car. Obviously,
Or you got to ride an ambulance, you know, with a loved one or something like that. Yeah, I can see that. However, a guy that was an elder for the Church of Kentucky said this: providentially hindered means you have absolutely no choice. What's it mean? And folks, when you have no choice, you have no choice. I've seen it happen when Sunday is Christmas. When we spend that time with our family. I've seen it happen when we still got family until Thanksgiving. I've seen it happen a lot when we're providentially hindered. No, you're not. You know, I think Christmas happened on a Saturday one year, and I had this idea on the spur of the moment. I said, tell you what, tomorrow let's have a social. Everybody bring a couple of things left over from Christmas dinner. Or was it Thanksgiving? Either one. I said, just everybody bring left over, and then next week's a social. That was the most fun I think we've ever had, or one of the ones we've had that we've had the most fun at. And I think a lot of the ladies that were here that time got recipes for stuff that they liked that they could next make for their next holiday dinner. You know, there's some stuff that was actually pretty unusual and pretty good, and some of us learned about other people's family traditions about what they have. A lot of people around here, I've noticed at Thanksgiving they'll have turkey, but they also have fish in this area. Not a bad idea. I mean, what I want to try one year, Donna and I can't come to an agreement on it, is instead of having turkey, have turducken.
Who?
Turducken.
I'll freaking duck.
Matt and them had a dove.
Do what?
Matt and them a couple of years ago had a dove.
A duck.
A goose or a dove, whatever it was.
Well, the traditional Christmas dish from England is a goose.
Yeah.
which I don't wanna eat, and it's not because it doesn't taste good, it's because it takes forever to cook it. Cause you gotta keep draining the grease out.
I guess Scrooge bought a goose,
Yeah,
maybe that's what it was, yeah.
well, I mean, that's why it was called Christmas food.
But it was awful. Figured not to, Scrooge.
Turducken is you take all the
Stuffed
bones
it,
out of a turkey, you take all the bones out of a duck and put it in there. You take all the bones out of a chicken and put it in there, sew it back together and bake it. I wanna try it, everybody says it's wonderful.
It's really old.
It's
really old.
I never
They used to do it.
I never heard it
a lot
till
of
this
years
year.
ago.
I would love to do it, but you know, honestly, I'll say this, knowledge. Christmas, eat what you like. Have fun with your family. One year for Christmas, y'all did it, and then we heard y'all do it, and then so we did it. We had a little country boy.
Yeah.
And crab legs. I mean, there was not as many leftovers. But, you know, it's great. But folks, and our preacher said this about Christmas and church attendance and things like this. Don't let the Christ in Christmas rob the Christ of glory. You know, your sign, Kim, you said you saw one time, Christmas was on Sunday. It said, there's a sign that said, Jesus is the reason for the season. No services Sunday, December 25th.
Excuse me, church closed for the holiday.
You know, and I've seen that happen. Olin was telling me that there was a graduation going on, everyone wanted to go, and it was during church. And they wanted to cancel services so everybody could go, and Olin said no. We'll have services for the other church this week. It's Sunday night, too. What's your invitation song? Do you have one?
216,
216.
your bar taught me. I know the song, that's why I said that. And I sing it
In a
along.
couple minutes, we'll sing 216, and if you stand with me and respond to Lord's invitation, we promise together we stand, and as we sing.
Take my life and let it be consecrated, Lord, to thee. Take my hands and let them move at the impulse of thy love. Take my will and make it thine. It shall be no longer mine. Take my heart, it is thine own. It shall be thy royal throne. Take my love, my Lord, I pour. At thy feet is treasure stored. Take myself and I will be ever only all for thee.
Lord, most gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you once again for this privilege to come together and worship you. We pray that all things have been done in accordance to your will. We pray for those, dear Heavenly Father, who are weak in heart and just need like to come to church. Please strengthen them, help us to say something that will encourage. With those who are ill, unable to attend. Be with those in the hospital, for to get better. And it's through Jesus we pray. Amen.
Amen. One announcement that I know, besides John being in the hospital, is not this Sunday. This Sunday is Father's Day. Next Sunday after that will be our Super Sunday. Anything else going on? John Cameron still here?
Yeah, my dogs that are still in Tennessee.
I have a
And
friend,
I went and got my tractor back today.
He said,
Stella Myrick. she's really in need of prayer. She's got some really bad health problems.
What's wrong? Can't talk?
Just,
I'll remember what broadcast this might not show.
anyway, just please remember her. And, my best friend Leanne, she lost, her brother, the only living family member left. So, her mom, dad, brother and sister all gone.
How do you keep in touch with Snow?
By phone.
Okay. Tell her the next time you talk to her, or text her, tell her I asked about it. They were a special family to me. In fact, Ricky and what's the little girl's name?
Amber.
Amber. I watched them graduate, but I also watched them in elementary school. And when it came time, when her father-in-law passed away, they came by and said, we have no one. Would you do it? I said, took off school and got to know that family. They're a great family. I've always liked them.
Well, she's at home most of the time if you want to stop by.
Okay. If I can. So, be in prayer for that man. And also something odd happened to me today. I got a call, and the call came from, I don't know, some medical name. I didn't answer it because I wasn't there. And so I called them back, and they said, no, that's not us, we call you. And one said, oh, are you a pastor? And I said, well, no, I'm a preacher. But she said, well, we need help with food. We just moved here, we got a job starting Friday, driving cab. So I said, well, I don't have any money, but I can fill you up a couple of grocery bags. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll be in and out. I'll leave it on the concrete thing. I can send pictures and text message with the address and everything. It's still there. I mean, I even, since we didn't have too many like meat stuff, I went over to our kitchen and got some stuff and put it over there. And why would they come? They were green buds. I didn't really have the time to do all that, but I did. I was glad to. Yeah. You get it kind of jaded. I did that shit. But you get kind of jaded sometimes. And I shouldn't. What happened? And Donna left early this morning. We got up at 5. She could get ready to go. She was there 2 hours early before we get all the shower. She didn't pay her. We usually do have Travelocity and get whatever with it, but she got a cheaper one and a nicer one.
Oh, she flew?
No. She drove, but she's gonna be there tomorrow, and I don't want her, I don't want her leaving tomorrow night and driving at night. So she's gonna come back Friday morning. Because it's just not, with her eyesight, it's just not good at night.
A lot better than driving daytime, you should see a lot better what's going on.
Although she never sleeps, so she's just as awake at night as she is during the day. She's gonna have trouble sleeping. Anything else?
Don't forget the vegetables.
Yeah, there's some wash back there with the phone.
Oh, okay, thank you.
So you were saying Leanne lives in the center?
No, she lives in Chatsworth.
So the other lady that has health problems?
Oh, she lives in Odell. Kind of, right now from Donna Murphy, where Donna Murphy lives, but on the right hand side.
What's her name?
Stella Myrick. Our kids went to school together, and she worked at Georgia Pacific a long time ago, and that's kind of how we met. And
When she would come pick up the little girl and Ricky at elementary school, it was my job, I had duty at the mommy line to make sure the kids didn't run out the wrong errands and run out front cars. Stella had this huge big pickup truck. And little Amber, she was so small. And I would pick her every day. A lot of days I would take the book bag, put it in the truck, and take her and put it in the back of the truck. It was cute. Caught her texting in class once, in other people's class, but texting in my class. So when I got her out, took her phone. Don, I'll call you in a little bit, okay?
Thank you, Lisa. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. Don and Dad love squash. I like it too.
I'm so happy you came.
Happy to be here.
You know, it looks like you feel well, but.
No, my knee. But it is what it is. I tore my ACL
Oh.
years ago and
Ooh,
anyway.
it did it again, or bruised it.